seems as if everybody's becoming a little bit, just famous out of
it seems like you can do
nothing.
basically nothing and become a sensation, so to speak.
I mean, evidence with sort of, maybe you can look at artists like Juice WRLD, look at artists like Bad Baby, and all you see is just a bunch of people maybe getting one viral song or one viral like meme, even just birthing an entire career, where they're able to sign to labels and they're able to tour and things, and all you do is just see them, doing their thing, and they seem to have a cult following for something.
I mean, I think Bad Baby is a very good example there. Being a meme and then somehow birthing some crazy career out of it. Her agents are clearly very talented.
They're doing bits. Doing bits. Yeah, but I mean, she's even got like a reality show on Snapchat.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't want to say I've watched it because that's embarrassing, but I've seen bits of it. Yeah,
no, it's not. Yeah, it's not great. Poor girl. But we're here to talk to you a little bit about maybe more of the organic kind of growth and some of the more typical growth that's happened throughout the years. So, how did it used to be, Dan?
Well,
before the internet.
So let's say you're a band. You basically, rehearse, get your act together. You try and get as many live concerts as you could, and any like small gigs anywhere, and pray basically that someone was in the audience who knew someone who was at a label, and then once you got contact and networked and eventually met the right people, you'd end up hopefully being able to get some studio time and making some music.
Exactly, very well summed up. Yeah, it tended to be just more toward you have to go through a label. There is no alternative option, especially in like the 50s and 60s, where people the only exposure they really had to like sort of, I guess, because that's interesting, the way sort of Elvis Presley came up through the 50s. And how like he was seen as like this bad thing because he got so big and so famous and just had this sort of like rock and roll kind of attitude to it, and looked sort of deviant and things, very deviant from like specifically like what was considered acceptable at the time.
100%.
And because thinking back to maybe sort of America specifically, sort of people's exposure to music maybe was limited to maybe classical things, as well as like some of the jazz and like speakeasies. During the Prohibition era and things like Prohibition. Oh shit. No, Prohibition era. And it was just they wouldn't have had too much exposure to that until Elvis popped on the scene. And so now they just wanted to sort of, and that's all they had to go off of. And so and then other people sort of coming up through the 60s, growing up in the 60s, would to be able to see like the Beatles and things propel themselves to fame, the Stones, the Velvet Underground, everything like that, the Doors. They just were able to view sort of all of these people coming up, and they were coming up through exclusively label oriented things and not owning any of the masters to their music,
basically. It's interesting because it's like the industry would decide who got famous and who didn't.
Exactly. They just, all they wanted to do was put like this front man, and they got paid well enough to do what they did, play the instruments and do everything live and record their singles and things. But starting out, it was quite hard to conceive how a lot of people were able to gain any traction imminently. It became more widespread as more labels began to pop up, as more people started producing vinyl records and things like that. You definitely, it was only if you kind of knew people who were working in the studio, or you're able to network outside of that, find label execs to give you a chance to record a demo. Were you ever able to even get your foot in the door? If not, you just had to exclusively play live gigs and just hope there was someone in the audience, or that you gained enough traction to pull somebody. So it was definitely a different time.
I mean that's part of the reason like the internet is so powerful now. It's like anyone can become famous, in inverted commas. It's like, do one thing, i.e. Bad Baby said, catch me outside, how about that? And suddenly you're a star. Back then, you had to hustle.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, for some things, because like we're kind of, there's like maybe sort of meme culture is weirdly driven a lot of some music recently. It's been some of these acts like Lil Pump and Bad Baby kind of thing coming up just off the basis that they have some stupid gimmick that this kind of were birthed from, and that was just able to propel them a bit even further. It's like perpetual sort of virality. Everything that they do, they become the meme. They don't there's nothing outside of it. They're just a gimmick. And I guess you kind of always had that with like gimmicky acts But I guess it's now, because the internet's more accessible, and it's, you know, you can see what people are kind of looking for or looking to entertain them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it stayed such a way, you know, with sort of hunting through labels for a very long time. It happened, you know, sort of maybe began in the 50s, and then sort of became, you know, music became more widespread as more vinyl plants were opening, things like that, throughout the 20th century. And then you get to a point in about, I would say that the internet didn't become properly viable as sort of like a way to go about getting any kind of music fame until the 2000s.
Oh, I'd say 2010.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, you can see, like, Soulja Boy was sort of like evidence of, like, some of the very early come up. And so, you know, it's very recent that it's been able to be so viable to be able to come up like this.
It's very new. And I think that's part of the exciting thing about it. Like, we still have a lot of stars to come. I don't know if that means they'll start coming faster and going faster. Like, who knows? Maybe next year Lil Pump will have...
Well, I mean, he's already kind of falling into obscurity. I mean, I feel like he's, you know, he needs to... I think a lot of these people, maybe they need to have some unique appeal and they need to stick a bit more, because I feel like, the lifespan of these artists is, like, constantly reducing. Like, if anybody is talking about Lil Pump or Bad Baby in 5 years' time, you know, I will be decidedly overwhelmed. Like, they have to have some uniqueness about them. They have to be able to produce good music in order
100%.
to keep going. And, you know, for some things, like, it's not that it's impossible for them to do such a thing, it's just that it seems unlikely.
They have a large audience right now, and I think that they either need to start like getting their stuff together now, or, you know, face being a regular person again.
I know, it's the 15 seconds of fame, you know, it kind of applies. It's sort of everybody's, you know, gunning for their 15 seconds, but 15 seconds can sometimes be all you need, and then just build up a little fortune, and that's it. Retire off that. Just do whatever you want.
Yeah, do what you like.
I feel J. Cole has talked about this a lot in his music as well, about the sort of lifespan of these new artists. Like, people who, you know, pushed you up initially are going to grow up, and they're not going to care about what your shenanigans are anymore. And that's it. All of these artists, I guess it's a trend in it, they're all incredibly young.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they're
younger than us even.
There's always going to be more younger people to pull from and to push as gimmicky artists.
Yeah, so true.
So we're not gonna be in a state where we need to listen to Lil Pump in 5 years. We'll have, you know, probably 10 Lil Pumps come and gone by the time that's even over. And it's weird because, you know, for some things you wonder how much these artists are actually into the music, or whether or not they're using it as just like a come up thing.
Just like I can make a quick buck off this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing with Blueface. In a recent interview, he didn't even know who... You know, he said he didn't even know anything about music per se. He just wasn't into it. He didn't like it, and he used rap solely as a way to earn money, and just happened to be in the studio with his friends and just record a verse, and it sounded unique and actually gained clout as well. And then Cole Bennett kind of picked it up, and then it became like another thing entirely as well, which is just I guess it's indicative a little bit of 2 Chainz's recent album, Rap Will Go to the League. People, you know, don't have many options, and rap is seen as a very viable option to get money,
to make money and make a living. But I think that comes across in the music as well, though. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like Blueface's music, but Bust Down Thotiana wasn't exactly a masterpiece compared to other musicians who clearly very passionate about what they're saying. Take Kendrick, or even Chance the Rapper, as you know, who's quite fitting for this.
Chance the Rapper, very independent artist.
I think their music definitely has a lot more soul. Like, their songs actually mean something.
Yeah, I know. And I guess I would argue that it probably music doesn't have to mean something, and you can get away with these gimmicky things. But yeah, you do. So I guess I personally kind of wonder about the ethos of some of these artists, just like why they're doing what they're doing. Like, if they want to, you know, make that gimmicky music, get that mainstream appeal, then, you know, you can see previously their predecessors.
More power to them. It's working.
Yeah, it's working for them, and, you know, probably people won't be talking about them, but it is quite lucrative, and especially as people are getting more clued up now, especially in the hip-hop scene, as to making sure they own their masters when they sign these label deals. They can actually make sure that they can get some longevity and some steady income bringing in. and they're not sort of concerned about labels owning everything and them only getting maybe, you know, what seems like a lot of money in the beginning sort of as a signing bonus, but then them getting strangled out of maybe other income, and as their lucrative spending habits kind of continue, it's not sustainable. So they can end up in tricky situations. I think like I saw recently, like De La Soul were sort of on Instagram making it aware that Tommy Boy Records were trying to put all of their music out, the 3 Feet High and Rising, I don't know if all of the other albums are coming out as well, onto streaming platforms, and they were only going to get 10% of that. They were going to get 90% was going to Tommy Boy. Effectively. I know, and it's, you know, all birthed from the fact that they, again, at the time, didn't really know what they were signing, because they they were excited. Yeah, they're excited. You know, definitely. Especially, I feel like hip hop is sort of epitomizing this because of the fact that a lot of the artists aren't coming from well-off backgrounds. A lot of them are coming from impoverished neighborhoods, and they need, you know, all they want is just the fast money, the good money to try and take care of everybody that they know. And there's a lot of people hanging on, and that seems to be just a continuing problem.
I mean, that's a very valid point. It's almost like it's a quick, there's not a quick buck in a way, but it's like there's some money I can make quickly, and to help, it would improve their life significantly.
Good God,
it's getting windy in here. Jesus,
I promise you that wasn't us. that was just wind coming in the attic. But yeah, I mean, I'd also argue that some of these artists are in fact, you know, doing their best to make what they would consider to be good music, and you know, I don't think we can hate on that. I think, and I think not. Even if they're not, it's just they're doing their thing, and if it's working, yeah, no, exactly. If it's working for them, then absolutely can, you know, power to them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that goes back to the power of the internet thing. Is now you can, you know, if you're lucky, I think you need a lot of luck to be successful on the internet, because it's more the internet decides who is quote unquote successful. But you can upload something to the internet for free and end up making, you know, a living off it.
Exactly. Yeah, the power of sort of SoundCloud, I guess you could even say, in recent years, as sort of SoundCloud rapper has kind of gone from a sort of derogatory insult to more of a, or even a compliment for something. Yeah. Like, although maybe it still sort of retains some of the stigma, it actually isn't a bad thing anymore to be a SoundCloud rapper. You see people making a lot of money.
It's almost like you respect the hustle. It's like, oh, he's a SoundCloud rapper. Yeah, well, good luck. Almost. It's like, and you mean it. It's not like, you're in trouble now, huh?
I know, it is interesting to see how it's sort of developed, and I think with the dawn of the internet, all of this has become possible. You see, Chance the Rapper evidently going about it after releasing Acid Rap, sort of going about it in a way where he can maintain his independence, and he is not tied down in any way, and yet he still manages to retain a social media presence. He still manages to retain streaming platform presence, things like that. And although there are a lot of artists that have deals with these streaming platforms and are able to, you know, rake the money in any which way. They have people wanting to take care of their merch, people wanting to take care of their, you know, extra access like cassettes and CDs and vinyls and stuff. You have, you know, all these people sort of ready to take care of everything, and so that's why to an independent it can seem kind of daunting. And you know, they end up sort of starting their own labels, and I guess that's good. However, are they not going to just fall into the same practices?
I think on the one hand, maybe they'll be like a bit more, their label might be more quote unquote fair. Yeah. But then on the other hand, you know, money does corrupt people.
I know. It's like you can arguably sort of say, okay, well, Travis Scott sort of has his like Cactus Jack records. Ooh. And I think that was like, I don't know if that is related to good music, or I think it might be a subsidiary of it. I don't know. But then you have people like Gunna, and I think signing to that. Yeah. And you just, I guess it just makes you wonder, like, obviously he's giving this in his music, and a lot of people's hip hop music nowadays, it seems to be everyone's creating an air of success, and they're not concerned about anything else. But you just wonder how good that deal is. Like, you know, how much is Travis Scott raking in off the back of that?
Exactly.
How much of Cactus Jack records is even Travis Scott raking off in the back of that? Like, obviously he has this massive show.